To understand Islamic banking and finance, we have to understand Islam. All aspects of your life must be according to the commandments of your Creator. And the first thing is, when you deal in finance, when you deal in money, don't deal in money on the basis of interest.
Riba, yeah, exactly.
Riba. In almost all of the scriptures, riba has been prohibited. Riba was prohibited. Now we hear the word crypto, Bitcoin. So what are these? What does Sharia say about it? So how do we answer those questions? How do we answer the needs of ever-changing, ever-evolving economic system? A very significant part of what we call as conventional finance is still based on principles which are closer to Sharia. So people, when they hear this faith-based, or they expect that it should come free or it is like charity. No. It's a business enterprise.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسلام والصلاة على رسول الله. Islamic finance, an industry that is growing around the world. So a lot of people has questions, Muslims and non-Muslims. They are wondering if this is truly Islamic. Muslim populations especially, they want to know if they have an alternative in this conventional system. Joining me today is Ammar Ahmed, an experienced and passionate leader in the field of Islamic finance. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, Ammar has worked globally, providing Sharia-compliant consultancy and training to financial institutions. Ammar's extensive background includes advising on major capital market transactions and corporate restructuring, and his commitment to Islamic finance has made him a key figure in shaping its growth worldwide. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much, Ammar, for joining me and accepting this invitation.
Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum assalam, Muhammad. It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you, Ammar?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So this subject is very trendy. A lot of people are wondering what it is. They want to know the details, and they hear a lot of things also. They want to get clarification. So I think it's a good thing to do this podcast and talk about this.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Muhammad. Thank you for having me. Yes, it is a very, let's say, important subject, as well as something which is unavoidable subject as well, because something which becomes so mainstream, people of course ask questions, want to understand and clarify. So it's my pleasure to be here.
So I think we can start with the beginning. What is Islamic finance?
It's a good question, and I think fundamentally, to understand Islamic banking and finance, we have to understand Islam. So Islam, as we all know, is a faith, and that faith provides human beings with a way of life. So people who believe in the Islamic faith, they would like to align all aspects of their life as per the commandments of their faith. So in summary, we can say it's faith-based way of life. So when we look at Islamic finance in that sort of context, it's banking and finance, or anything related to banking and finance, if I may extend the, let's say, the definition to certain principles which are provided by the faith, the belief. So that's a simple definition.
Yeah. So what are those principles that you're talking about?
Very good point. So those principles, if you see, I think I'll take a step back, and for the benefit of our listeners and viewers. Islamic faith, the primary, let's say, approach of Islamic faith is all aspects of your life. If you're a believer, if you believe in Islamic faith, all aspects of your life must be according to the commandments of your Creator, be it your personal life, your commercial life, your economic life, or business, whatever activity you do in this world. So essentially, from the time you're born till the time you die, everything needs to be governed by those principles. Now, the good thing about Islamic principles is this is also very unique as a, let's say, as a rule-based approach, where we are guided by our faith to look at this world in a positive manner. What do I mean by that? So I mean that when you look at this world, Islamic faith does not inhibit or stop or, let's say, put restriction. The approach is everything that a human mind can conceive and do and, let's say, create or develop is permissible for human. So you want to be the best of the
Doctor,
creators, the best of the doctors, the best of the
pilot.
businessmen, the pilot, whatever field you choose or whatever you want to do, everything is permissible.
Yeah.
This is the basic Islamic principle. However, the faith tells us and teaches us that your limitations and possibilities are known to your Creator. So when you set out to achieve something, you should be limited or you should be having in your mind a certain set of criteria to check. So, for example, you want to become the richest man in the world. What are the principles that you must abide by?
There is a framework you have to
There
respect.
is, yeah.
There's rules.
And these rules are very simple. So, if I, let's say, bring this concept to Islamic finance, what do we come across? We say that Islamic finance is a rule-based, let's say, financial system where individuals or entities who are dealing in this system are required to adhere to certain guidelines. So, what are those guidelines? These guidelines are very simple. I said everything in finance is permissible. So, we don't approach the financial services industry
Like a restriction in the beginning.
like a restriction in between. It is the realm of possibilities. So, therefore, people of Islamic faith do access financial services industry. They do deal with that. But then when they see how they operate, how they function, we go to our rule book. So our rule book is not extensive. It's very brief. So we say that if you are dealing in financial services industry, avoid probably, four or five things. And the first thing is when you deal in finance, when you deal in money, don't deal in money on the basis of interest.
Riba, yeah, exactly.
Riba.
People also that know a little bit about Islamic finance.
Yeah, they do, I'm
First
sure.
thing about you think is the riba. The
Yes.
first restriction. This is the most
Yes.
important also. Major sin in Islam.
Not just Islam, let me highlight this to
true.
you. See, riba as a concept, if we study all the faiths, and we believe as Muslims that all faiths have one primary source, because we believe all prophets were true prophets, all messengers of the Creator were true messengers. Somehow, somewhere, their message was muddled or,
Yes.
was mixed with human desires. So our Islamic belief tells us that the last in the series of these messengers was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who came to bring the entire humanity towards the original message of the Creator. So if you look at the scriptures that are available in whatever shape and form they are, in almost all of the scriptures, riba has been prohibited. Riba was prohibited. So technically, it's not just
Yeah. It has been also forbidden in a strong way also that this is don't approach interest, don't do interest.
So, particularly, our faith, our principles are very, you can say, strong about or strong in their opposition to the riba, where we have gone to the extent because there are, the sayings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very clear ayat in the Book of God, which is the Holy Quran, which we all believe and we know that it's a message of the Creator, the final revelation. So, in summary, riba is impermissible in any financial transaction. Then you come across various other concepts like don't deal in game of chance, speculation, or lotteries,
Gambling.
So anything which is closer to this is also then impermissible, or anything which, let's say, results or mimics this idea is also impermissible. Then, third, you come across the concept of what we call in the language of Islamic law as gharar. So, if I can loosely translate it to, it's like impermissible uncertainty or excessive uncertainty.
Excessive, yeah.
So these are, the principles. And of course, there are principles that you should have freedom to contract. And on the basis of how you can make money, what is profit to you, what is a test, whether to check if I've made money on something, is it halal for me or permissible for me? So there are principles on that you have to take a risk capital versus loan capital. So all these, let's say three, four, or maximum, if I can, go into the nuances and details about five, six principles
Profit and loss
constitute.
sharing is also a principle.
Yeah. So when I say the risk capital, so it means that your capital must take risk.
Yeah.
For you to be able to earn.
So if there is a risk, you should be able to win but also lose.
Yes.
This is the risk.
Yes.
Participating in the real economy also, I think this is a main point.
It goes without saying. So see, this is also something which we have to clarify, So even conventional banking and finance, to a large extent, they also participate in real economy. It's not that they are doing always gambling and so it's not true.
I think, but with time, they are being more and more financialization, we call it.
You are, to an extent, yes, but then essentially, even if you see at the banking and financial system or the industry itself, they still play a crucial or a major part in the economic system by providing, let's say, simple services to people like, banking services, accounts,
savings,
and investments. So essentially, all of the activities they do, or a significant part of the activities they do, don't essentially go against the spirit of what a human being would want to earn and live. And like I said earlier, Islam does not prohibit or restrict, or it does not tell you go and live in jungles. You have to live in this world, right?
Yeah.
And if you live in this world, you want all of these things. So this is also some people go very strong in their criticism or analysis of conventional system by saying that this system, and yes, we agree that because it's a riba based system, riba based intermediation, interest based intermediation, it's not acceptable. Our faith, our principles.
And I think in our faith, Islam, we have the Sharia that is we consider perfect. So we have the rules. So if we follow them, we should not be able to have any issues. Sharia means also the pathway to follow. So it's like we have the solution, we just have to follow it.
See, yes, Sharia is perfect because it's provided by the Creator. However, human beings are not perfect. And when we talk of the application of Sharia, who is applying Sharia? We as human beings, right?
Our application is not perfect.
Of course, it goes without saying.
We can see it.
Yeah. So, but then, so this itself, and the second point is, we as human beings are evolving. Now, the speed of this change has become too fast. Sometimes we also don't understand how the world was 10 years back.
Technology, and industry,
everything that we do, we feel and we see everything. So now in this space as well, we see, we'll come to this subject probably to discuss. Now we hear the word crypto, Bitcoin. So what are these? What does Sharia say about it? So how do we answer those questions? How do we answer the needs of ever-changing, ever-evolving economic system? So in that sense, yes, Sharia principles are not time-bound. They are the principles for, let's say, till the day of judgment. But then out of those principles, how we derive solutions is a process that a human being has to do. And that process may sometimes have their own shortcomings. Not because the principles have some imperfections, but because the process of deriving solutions from those principles are made by humans. So their interpretation may sometimes be lacking in something.
So what should be the solution to that?
It's a process. So that's why we say in Sharia that a mujtahid, someone who is looking at the principles, challenges, the challenges of the world and providing solution, we call them mujtahid. And in Sharia, this person has, a very high stature. And it's even said that if a mujtahid, even if he does a mistake, he is forgiven because he's at least tried. And his intention was to find the right solution for a changing need.
Ijtihad, they do the effort of interpretation.
Yes. So this is very, as a Muslim, as a student of Sharia, we all know this, we all understand this. Islamic, jurisprudence or Islamic system, it let's say it values the mujtahid, and it goes to the mujtahid to seek the solutions. So it's a process that I think will continue.
It has to continue. I think, as you mentioned, also the crypto, there is a lot of innovation in our world. New products also coming, new ways of doing finance.
Yes, the basic approach is everything is permissible.
So, for example, for crypto, as it's a new thing, is it permissible until there's a rule that prohibits it, or we have to wait, or we can use it until we have
Yeah.
this rule?
So the approach should be, it's not that we can start using it until it is declared something. So the first important point here is, whenever, as Muslims, we come across these new developments, or even we develop something new, then the first requirement is we should be having the requisite education, understanding both of how the world operates, how the economic system and these new ideas operate, and the deep understanding and knowledge of the jurisprudence. Fiqh, we call it. So, Sharia, fiqh al-ma'amalat. So, with the combination of these two, the ideal approach is upfront when something comes in. The Muslim scholars, the mujtahid should be ready with the answers.
Yeah.
So that is the most desired approach. If a mujtahid is, let's say, is still discussing, or there are still questions about that, one must avoid indulging into it until they have clarity. Because ultimately, it's a question of principles and faith. But then you should not be left behind as well, because the world is progressing and you cannot be living 5 years behind where the world is today. Otherwise, you cannot, match the speed and overtake the speed of the world. So ideally, the scholar should come forth with the solution. The mujtahid should come forth with the solution. I think nowadays, if you see, not just Sharia scholars, with rapid changes in technology, even the regulators are behind.
Yeah. AI, for example.
I mean, I can give you examples. So even in the case of cryptos, after crypto came, after so many years, until now,
they are still issuing new regulate. I mean, they're talking about it.
They're still talking about it. There are no regulations in a lot of countries. Even the conventional system is trying to grapple and understand what is this all about. So I don't want to blame only the Sharia and the Sharia scholars.
It's a problem for everyone.
I said so. I don't want to blame the Sharia scholars, because it's a broader talk, and it always happens. So the human being has a new, let's say, emerging situation, and the answers probably come later.
So I think also a major point of this discussion is to know what is the difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance. What differentiates those two systems?
The principles. So we've seen, so conventional finance, let's say, is structured around or based on the principles of Riba, or at least a large part of conventional financial system. But then again, Muhammad, I just want to highlight one more important thing, which I would like people to notice and understand, is even today, a very significant part of what we call as conventional finance is still based on principles which are closer to Sharia. So, for example, you see, what is conventional finance? What is finance? What is financial services industry? It's a process of intermediation. So what do you do as a bank, for example, or as a fund manager, or as an investment manager? You basically take in or pool money from people who have money and provide to
who needs money. People who needs money.
So this process of intermediation is done both by, let's say, the traditional conventional system. So in this system also, if you see, let's say you want to open a company and you want to invite shareholders in that company. When you go to the traditional capital markets, they call it, there is nothing which is repugnant to Sharia there, because you invite money and you say, I want to do business. The only thing that probably we will see is the activity, is it okay or is it not okay? But then the process of taking the capital, so if you see, the world has what we call as stock markets. The entire idea of stock market, the entire idea of pooling money based on what you said initially, risk,
it's totally Sharia compliant.
It's totally Sharia.
It's like participating in a company, helping them. It's like an investment.
Yes, it's like
and then if
sharing, like a partnership.
Profits, you share it.
Yes. There are some areas there which may, you know,
Be an issue.
which may be, but there are minor areas. We
Yeah.
can, this is something which, so something which is not, is impermissible from the start, impermissible ab initio as they call it. The most important point here is conventional banking and Islamic banking. How do conventional banks intermediate, or how do conventional banks, let's say, raise or take
I think
capital
the
and then,
main difference lies in the banking
yes.
system.
So in banking system, when conventional banks take money from their depositors, they say, give me money, I give you interest.
Interest.
So they take money first. They promise them a pre-agreed rate of interest. And then they try to use the money
Make money
to make money, but their way of making money
is
is
also interest based.
interest based. So what they do is, when they, if you study banking, when they take money, so let's say they take money at interest of 3, 4,
Yeah.
5% interest rate. So they've already taken that money. So they call it cost of funds. After having taken the money, they try to apply this money in for businesses, for individuals, in form of products like credit cards, or,
Can
in
be also
conventional,
financial instruments, bonds,
yes,
stocks.
instruments, whatever. I mean, all sources of how, where the capital is
Yeah.
needed. Now, their basic, let's say, like you said, making money approach is the interest or the cost of funds they are required to pay is lower than the
Yeah.
interest they earn.
The difference is their profit.
Is their problem. Now, fundamentally, and not just from Sharia principles perspective, fundamentally, this is a very flawed model. Why is it flawed? Let's say when a conventional bank is working and it has given financing to its, on interest, of course, to its retail corporate customers. If those corporate customers default, or those retail customers default, they don't pay money with interest on time, or delay, or don't pay at all, will the conventional bank go to their depositors and say, sorry, I didn't make money?
No.
So you raise 100, on this 100 you have to pay 5% interest. You finance this 100, and your objective is to keep the interest more than 5%. Yes or no?
Yes.
So when you say, let's say you say 7% interest rate you finance, so your profit is 2% in between. So if this 100 does not come back to you, can you go back to your customer and say, customer, sorry, I didn't make money?
No. He won't say
He'll
that.
say, he'll say, please empty your pocket.
Yeah.
Give me your shareholder. So they will take the money of the shareholder. So which means that the depositor actually is not exposed to the risk or the performance of how you are making money, your financing assets. That risk is taken by the shareholder. So the depositor is
The risk is one sided only.
one side. So if you see, this is the reason a lot of conventional banks collapse from time to time, because they declare bankruptcy. If they are not able to earn profit, they go bust.
This Silicon Valley bankrupt, was it linked to this?
A mix of both. I mean, there were other situations, other issues as well. It was like a bank run, they call it. But see, this is the main idea. So they raise money on interest. They try to lend it, as they say, on interest which is higher. But then this higher interest is never assured, because you don't know what will happen. You have non-performing loans, as they call it. So this is the main, let's say, essential structural problem in the conventional banks. How do Islamic banks work then? So your question. So it's simple. We say Islamic banks work like fund managers. So you give your capital to us, and we call them investment accounts, or we call them investment account holders. So we take your capital. We don't promise you anything as a fixed rate. We cannot promise you. Can we promise you? We
No.
cannot promise
For
you.
example, Wakala is an investment product. We say expected
I mean, I
profit.
don't want to use Arabic terminologies, because our viewers maybe.
So
So
they
I'm
can
just,
also learn those. It's simple.
yeah, we
things.
will come to those, but I'm saying, so they take money on fund management. So you appoint me as your fund manager. So Islamic Bank is essentially a fund manager. So you take the capital from, 1, 2, 3, if you're a big bank, 100,000 depositors. So we call them investment account holders. We use their capital and we try to invest it again, make money on trading or through investment. So when you make money, you say that we will share the return. So that's the basic and simple idea of how Islamic bank work and function.
So also, I think there's a differentiation in those two systems about being allowed to own assets.
Essentially, when conventional banking law was made, or the banking law as we call it in a lot of countries, it actually recognizes banks as entities who can only borrow and lend. So borrow at interest and lend at interest. So all the legal systems recognize conventional banks as that. So of course, when we say Islamic banking, you asked me initially how Islamic banks make money or earn money. So I mentioned that they do it through fund management process. Fund management is also not unknown to the conventional industry. You have a lot of funds, but Islamic banks do fund manage banking like fund managers. They take capital and they apply the capital. So when they take capital, so they are not taking the capital, of course, on the basis of interest, right? So they're exposing their, or they're asking their investment account holders to be mindful that your capital that you have provided us is being deployed in a particular way. What is that way? So two ways. Either they invest as partnerships, as or they trade, they buy and sell, they lease. So basically, the way they make money is through investment and trade. So for this, whenever a country decides to introduce Islamic banking, so they then amended the laws. So wherever you go, wherever Islamic banking is now being offered, the central bank or any licensing authority which licenses, because if you want to do any business, you have to take license for that business. So banks also have to take license. So Islamic banks are given separate category of license. Regulators, look at them. So from the first Islamic bank that was established 1975, 76, a series of banks like KFH or Dubai Islamic Bank as a first Islamic bank, and subsequently, different countries had. So until 1990s, there were only few Islamic banks. But then the industry became widely accepted, developed further, especially post, let's say, 2004 and 5. In past 15 years, 20 years, it's seen tremendous growth.
Also, after the subprime crisis, it became a subject of interest for a lot of people who wanted to do a more ethical finance.
A mix of both, a lot of factors. So I would not say that's only one or two reasons, a lot of factors. So, the Muslim population grew, the faith-based, people wanted faith-based banking, people came to their faith for solutions. And then also the other entities in the world. For example, you will ask a question that what has, let's say, a Western bank got to do with Islamic finance? But then you see a lot of Western banks now, to name a few, like Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank, HSBC, all big global banks, Deutsche Bank. I mean, I'm not taking all the names here, but all of them have in some way or the other
Islamic
introduced
finance.
Islamic banking related products, or Islamic banking itself. So why did they do that, or what made them do that? Yeah, of course, they've studied. They have studied that they are not doing a charity; they are doing business.
Of course, they saw that there is a demand.
Yes, and also I think with charity, I just want to highlight one more thing here, which probably will clear a lot of minds as to the nature of Islamic banks. So people, when they hear this faith-based, or they expect that it should come free, or it is like charity. No. It's a business enterprise.
Exactly.
So a group of shareholders come together. They say, we will manage your money. We'll manage your money in a Sharia compliant manner. It doesn't mean that we are here to, give money for free. So when they manage this money as Islamic banks, they don't do it for charity. They take the money, and then when they apply this capital in investment and trading, there also they intend to make money. So if I am a retail customer of an Islamic bank and I have taken, let's say, we'll come to the details of how they do it, but if I have taken, let's say, a home finance from them, which means that they have facilitated my home purchase. So with this facilitation, they want to make some money.
They should be compensated.
Yeah. So they should make, I mean, they are trading, they are doing, investment and trading. So for that, if I don't pay on time, if I don't follow the contractual rules, if I, let's say, don't comply with the obligations, I should not expect that they will waive something. They will, forego their rights. For example, if I take a home for rent, will the landlord allow me to stay in that home even if I don't pay rent?
No.
It's not possible. So, similarly, people must understand that Islamic banks are business ventures. These are for profit institutions. So, shareholders are trying to, let's say, make money in a Sharia compliant manner by managing the funds of people. So, this is a very important concept, let's say, if not a misconception, but at least from a clarity perspective.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, it's like you're going to a halal store and you say, you're halal, you're doing Islamic, give me for free. It doesn't
Yeah.
work like why would it be different for a bank, Islamic bank?
Yeah.
So very good point. Regarding governance, Islamic finance.
How can we be assured that they are Islamic? So I think we discussed this earlier that there are questions people are asking. How can we trust, Islamic banks to be Islamic banks, or how does Islamic banking function? So for this, there is a simple answer because wherever Islamic banks are allowed and made permissible. So wherever Islamic banks are allowed, what has happened is the regulators have created rules for Islamic banks to function. If you see you want to open a restaurant, what do? You take a license for a restaurant. You have rules to comply with how your kitchen should be, how all the activities are required to be done, cleanliness, hygiene, inspection. Similarly, when you are opening an Islamic bank or a conventional bank for that matter, the regulators look, they have put down rules that why and how your institution as Islamic bank will be considered Islamic. Why do they do so? Because they want to make sure that the institution earns the trust of people. So, as part of the regulation across the world, almost across the world, whenever an Islamic bank is established or is proposed to be established, the regulators require that they have a body of scholars, which we call as Sharia committees or Sharia boards, to guide the management or to direct the management of the bank on the matters of Sharia compliance. So the management is there to do business. Let's say the management in the form of CEO, CFO, chief of business, So in banking, you have all those areas. You have banking for consumers, banking for corporations. So all those business teams are required by the regulation to go to their scholars, the committee of scholars, which are appointed for that bank, to take their direction in all things they do. So we call it the process of seeking Sharia guidance. So this is the primary, or you can say the top body which governs. They are not employees of the bank. So we don't call them internally as employees of the bank. They are a body which is, let's say, appointed by the shareholders to guide the management. And they are appointed by, let's say, the regulation. When I say by regulation, it means that as per the terms of the regulation. Some countries want to see who is the scholar who is eligible to sit in a board. So there are processes to make sure that Sharia governance or Sharia compliance is actually in a systemic way. It's not that if Muhammad wants to open a bank tomorrow, he can call it Islamic just like that. No, you cannot do that. You have to follow the rules and regulations. And the first one is appoint a Sharia board.
Okay. First one.
Internally, these Sharia boards are held by Sharia teams. So they have teams sitting inside as Sharia compliance teams where they work or they take the request of the business, they understand the request of the business, they talk to the Sharia board or the Sharia committee and then relay their guidance or provide their, let's say, approvals to the management, and then only they can work. So, in that sense, if you are looking at an Islamic bank in a regulated regime, then you can be assured that yes, some people in the name of Islamic finance in unregulated countries, I just wanted to be careful and also, warn our our listeners that not everything done in the name of Islamic banking could be, let's say,
Truly Islamic.
one that otherwise, especially on the unregulated
Yeah,
markets,
so regulation is a major
regulation
point.
is
It's very
important.
important.
So the first thing that people should see is the person who is doing Islamic banking or is claiming to do Islamic banking, is that entity regulated by the central bank?
His
If not
license,
central
everything.
bank, yes. If not central bank, there are other regulators like fund regulator, like securities regulator. So they must have a license for that. And large economies, large countries do have full-fledged regulations for Islam. In any institution, you have board of directors. So board of directors are responsible or made responsible by the shareholders to oversee the management performance. So management reports to the board of directors to, and board of directors are actually taking care of the shareholders' interest. In a similar way, shareholders appoint board of directors and they also in parallel appoint Sharia board. Why? Because they want the board of directors to run, to help the management or to appoint the executive to earn money, but at the same time, because they want it Sharia compliant, they appoint this body of scholars. So they are taking care of Sharia compliance. And you are right, it's unique to
Yeah.
Islamic banking
I
system.
think it should be like globalized. Every institution, I mean, who wants to do Islamic halal store, halal trading, and anything, they should have their own internal or external Sharia board that certifies that this is a truly halal business. What do you think?
There are no. I mean, if you see,
Yeah.
if you look at countries where you have regulated industry, you see, you know, the produce, the guidelines. So when if I'm running a grocery store or any restaurant and I
The
want to call
halal
it so,
stamp.
yeah, it's already there. So it's in regulated areas. If you go to countries which are in the non, let's say, a regulated space, you may not be able to distinguish between halal food and
Of
non-halal
course.
food. So in that sense, you are left at your own mercy. But then in regulated countries, Islamic banks, Islamic banking, I think we can be comfortable that yes, it's being regulated, it's being monitored by the authorities, by central banks.
So can non-Muslims also use Islamic finance, do Islamic finance? Is this only for Muslims?
Let's say, let me ask a question. You open a restaurant, or you open a grocery store, or you open any other business. Do you put a sign outside saying that only Muslims allowed inside? No, right?
No.
But then you are of Islamic faith. So your restaurant will of course serve halal food, right? So halal chicken. But your grocery will only have things which you consider or which your because you're faith based. So can he come to your restaurant and say, "Give me pork"?
No.
You say, "No, sorry, I don't serve pork." If you have to come to
But
my restaurant, eat.
we welcome everyone.
We welcome everyone, number one, and we say, "Eat my food." If you are willing to eat my chicken or my, steak,
And if you're not happy with it, just go to
go
another restaurant.
and other restaurant. So we say we welcome people of any faith to Islamic banking, but they have to come to us and take our products.
We also encourage them. I mean, if we consider that Islamic finance is protecting of all parties, is an ethical way of doing
Of course.
finance.
And even see, one important point to note here is even regulators. I said Islamic bank is regulated, right? Even regulators, they look at those things. They look at how you
Make this appealing?
make this appealing one, plus make it clear and transparent.
Yeah.
Make the especially on the retail customers how you take because retail customers are non-sophisticated. They don't go into the full
Details,
terms
everything.
and so there are ways and means to protect the interest of the. But then we invite people of any faith as Islamic banking professionals to come and bank to even work in Islamic banks because it's the same example. If someone's qualified to run your company, run your restaurant, and he is willing to abide by your principles, you may as well hire him as a cashier, as a waiter, or as a chef, even for example. Why not? So similarly, Islamic banks are not biased. So if you are willing to work for an Islamic bank, you have the right, let's say, qualification. If you want to be customers of Islamic bank, if you are agreeing to their products, the doors are open.
Good point. I mean, Islamic finance is growing rapidly, but if we can do more, why not? Still, if we compare to conventional finance, it's still a small portion. So we need people.
It is, I would not say it is no more a small portion. It has become significant. It's
Yeah.
become now, I think, a $5 trillion industry. And in a lot
Enormous.
of countries, it is more than 30%,
Yeah.
40% of the
In
economic
UAE, for
system.
example, it's 30%, 70%.
So it's increasing.
Significant.
It's significant. I mean, it's no more like, a small store
Yeah,
somewhere
something
down the
that you
road.
hear but you don't know.
It's not like that anymore.
So, what do you think that it is lacking? I mean, is there anything lacking for Islamic finance to develop further? And what do we need in Islamic finance now?
No, it's now about organic growth. I would not say something is lacking.
Okay.
Yes, there are, because Islamic banking, you see, is not very, very old in terms of the modern Islamic
50
banking.
years.
The principles have been there, but in the modern commercial banking regime, the first Islamic banks licensed were 50 years back. So, with that context, I think the awareness, the confidence, and any, let's say, any areas or gaps where Islamic banks are not able to function fully in terms of providing. So, see, what is banking ultimately? It's providing solutions. It's a service. So, the more you do service, the more you attract the customers. Islamic banks are now, let's say, required to differentiate their service, create service based. So now you will only have, let's say, a number of people who will come to you only on the basis of their faith. So let's say in a country you have 20% Muslims or 25% Muslims. So you will only be able to attract them to your system. But then what about the others?
You have to be competitive.
You have to. So to be competitive, your service must be at par. Your service must improve. Those are the things I think that will take Islamic Bank not just to people who believe in the faith, but probably if a lot of others who don't believe in the faith, but they see the benefits out of it. So also like Islamic banks are ambassadors of the
Of
principles.
course. Every people or institution that claims to do Islamic finance, they have also a responsibility to
Goes
be
without
truly
saying.
Islamic.
Goes without saying. So
So how can we improve? I think it goes through innovation. How to improve, how to compete, how to keep pace with the conventional banking or financial system.
yes, you're right. Innovation,
Mainly.
or any other, you know. So basically, there was a phase when Islamic banks did not have or offer all services that conventional banks would have. Now, Alhamdulillah, over a period of time, you've seen that gap bridged. So an Islamic bank offers now almost all services all types of solutions, I would not say services, that a conventional bank would offer. Now we probably move to a phase where Islamic banks can compete in the service. Now you see that's why Islamic banking spreading across various countries, various jurisdictions. So in financial terms, we use the word systemic. So something is considered systemic when it is too big to fail,
Yeah.
right?
We don't want this to fail.
It fail. So it's like the inherent part of the any industry.
Which part of the world would be systemic Islamic finance?
A lot of countries. So the test is if the industry is more than, let's say, 10% of the system, it is considered systemic. So if you see Islamic banking, it is now systemic in, I don't know the number for sure, but I think at least in
10 countries, no?
more than
More than 10?
more than 10.
We have, I mean, the main regions, I think GCC.
More than, I think it's easily in excess of about 25, 30, or I have to see
That's
the
good.
latest numbers, but it's more than. So if you see $5 trillion, so you see all the GCC countries, a lot of countries in North Africa, Central Asia is coming up, Southeast Asia, and then you have
I think
countries
Europe
like
has a lot of potential also. Africa has a big potential.
Africa is coming up. North Africa has opened up. Europe is a frontier that I think will come up. So, inshallah.
In terms of numbers, you said 5 trillion. So how is the evolution? Do we have
I
two
have to see
numbers?
I mean, it's the growth was, if I'm not mistaken, double digit for the past 10, 15 years.
Okay.
So it's very rapid growth.
Yeah.
So Islamic finance industry, when you say it comprises of Islamic banks, Islamic funds, Sharia compliant funds. Then we also have, inshallah, we'll speak about it in future,
Insurance,
Sharia compliant alternative to insurance,
takaful.
which we call as takaful. We'll speak about that.
Inshallah.
And then you have, the other fund raising mechanisms like we call fixed income instruments. So from a Sharia perspective, we call them sukuk. So 5 trillion, when we say it's a combination of
Combination
all
all
of
of those
this,
industries.
your funds, your
So in first
banks.
place, we have Islamic banks.
Of course, banks are the major
The
chunk.
second, I
Anyway,
think, is investment. I mean,
investment
sukuk.
funds, sukuk, we call them. And then you have takaful.
Takaful still needs also a lot of development, I think.
Of course. I mean,
Because insurance in conventional system is a very big industry, and we also know that it is also based on riba. If we can, I mean, we have to develop Islamic insurance. It's for the benefit and for the good of Muslim and non-Muslim populations. Okay, so I think we have talked about interesting points of Islamic finance.
let's
Very
hear back
clear.
from our viewers on,
Yeah. So
on what is there.
all your feedbacks we welcome. Tell us what you liked, what you don't liked.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Inshallah, this is not the last podcast we do on Islamic finance. What subject would you like us to talk about? So don't hesitate. And
Sure. So
again,
if we have, so we can build on this progressively, and we
yeah.
can talk more about how the products function. What is what are the modes of, because I only mentioned investment and trade. So of course, the viewers may be, looking forward to
have
more
their
details
own
on.
questions and
Yeah.
there are specific areas where they want to have
So
details.
inshallah, I think we can carry this forward based on
Inshallah.
any specific questions or our discussion. Inshallah. Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Ammar. It was very interesting and useful conversation, I think.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for having me, and look forward to
Thank you for accepting
series,
my
inshallah.
invitation. And inshallah, we'll see you the next time.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.